let's talk. We got a new regional championship format. We got a new world championship format. And the one thing I love to talk about all the time is formats and the pros and cons of every single format. This is like what I love to do. So let's get into it. We're going to talk first the regional championship format. We explained it on this past weekend's RLCS broadcast. And so let's go over it. This has been something that I've been asking for a while. I think a lot of people have been asking for a decent amount of time. Is the new regional championship format for a couple reasons. So one reason was in the past, 2/3 of the broadcast was for only seeding for the world championship. Only 1/3 of the regional championship broadcast was for actual spots for the world championship. And I get it. Like, we need to find seeds, and it's very important, or like a lot of fun to see who becomes the champion of the region. But there were some, maybe some downsides of having 4 games left, especially that third place game. That third place game, like, no one wanted to see that for the most part. It's just like, who cares? So what has been done is there are now 3 games to determine world championship spots and 3 games to determine seeded spots and no third place game. So right there, huge pro. We get rid of the third place game and we make half of the broadcast about world championship spots. I think that is incredible and it should be a lot of fun to watch. But let's go over what this format actually is before we continue with pros and cons. So the old format would have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. So you guys can't see my mouse on here, so that's kind of a problem. But 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. The winners from those would go to the World Championship. They would go on to the semifinals. And then your land team's line, that green line that is shown there, would be the same. It would just be, now you would have the 3 seed or 6 seed playing the 2 seed, and the 4 seed or 5 seed playing the 1 seed, and you continue on, but there was a third place game. So now what it is you get the 3rd and 4th seed. No matter what, one of those teams is going to the World Championship. They play, and they get an extra life, or it's a double elimination bracket where 2 teams are in the uppers, 2 teams are in the lowers to start. So 3 and 4 get that extra life. Whoever loses goes down to that LM2 spot that you can see on the screen. And whoever wins goes to face the RLCS 2 seed in the semifinals. Semifinals is still the same. It's just single elim going forward. For the 5 and 6 seed, now they play each other to determine who gets a chance at a world championship spot. So one of those teams is eliminated right there. And they will play the loser of the 3 and 4. And then they will move on to face the first seed of the RLCS in the semifinals. So there's a couple things that are nice about this. Is one of the pros is for the semifinals, you get more realistic seeding. Where, say, the 4th seed was looking really, really good. And say the 6 seed beats the 3 seed. Well, it used to be the 2 seed would play the 6 seed. And it's like, well, they're the weakest team left in the bracket. Why isn't the 1 seed playing them? For the most part now, the 1 seed will definitely be playing the weaker team. I mean, you could have a 5 or 6 seed looking really hot that day, and the 1 seed has to play it. But in terms of at least the 3 and 4 seed, where both teams could be relatively close in the standings, and everyone knows, like, the 4th seed's probably the better team, that now the 1 seed doesn't have to worry about that. They will face the weaker team between the 3 or 4 seed or one of the teams that comes out from the 5th or 6th seed. So that's a good pro there. The 2 seed will face the best team, we would say, from the 3 through 6 range based on that 3 and 4 matchup. So that'll be nice. It'll make the semifinals a little bit more accurate. And again, there's no third place game. It's based on league play tiebreakers. There might be a caveat in there for, like, say the 4 seed beats the 3 seed in that first part of the bracket, they might get the 3rd place spot. I'm not sure if that's actually in the rules or not, so I have to go back and check. I think right now they're not, but it might be added. I'm not positive. But because I think if the 4 seed beats the 3 seed to basically acquire the 3 seed for the semifinals, I think they should get the 3rd place over the actual 3rd seed, if that makes sense, because they beat them in the playoffs. But it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. So 3rd place, I think they also share the same money, I think. But I'm not positive of that either. So 3rd place, you tie for 3rd. It's just for your grouping going into the World Championship where you're placed. It will be a little bit worse if you're 4th seed. So it's not the end of the world. The only con I see from this is the 4th seed and the 5th seed. There might be some, like, momentum stuff where, like, all right, like, the 5th seed's going to be coming in off a win. The 4th seed's coming off a loss. And this is in a perfect world where the seeds actually take place. And then the 5th seed might have a little bit more momentum. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter too much because like the 4th seed gets that extra shot and the 5th seed has to avoid elimination twice. So like at that same point, pros should be able to bounce back from series. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal, but I think that's maybe the one downside is that like instead of like in a perfect world, like if these seeds go through, so instead of 4 and 5 just meeting off at the start of the day, they meet off where 4 seed already has a loss on the day and 5th seed already has a win. So that'd probably be the only minor con, but for the most part, it's a really, really good format. And it's going to make the 5th or 6th seed really deserve it. Like, the one thing that I think we got lucky with in the old format is we never really had a team that didn't deserve to go to the World Championship make it. We never had, like, a 6th seed that's 2 and 5 beat a 5 and 2 team to make the World Championship. And I think it would be a cool story either way, where it's like, oh, they're the big underdogs or whatever. But there's never been that big of a gap between teams that made it. Like, I think in the history, the 3 seed has always made it, and the 4 and 5 have flipped occasionally. Probably the one that most people think of that could have been more of an upset was back, what was it, season 3? I think it was season 3, G2 Denial. But if you look back at the standings, they were actually really close. Like G2 was 4 and 3, and Denial was 3 and 4. So it wasn't that big of a deal. Like that Denial won that and moved on, because then obviously they had a better record, or at least a tied record with them at 4 and 4. So that wasn't that big of a gap, and I think that was the biggest gap we've ever had. So I'm not too worried about that. Like also there was MV Flipside 2 seasons ago, was it? With a 4 and 5 flip, and also I think Mocket might have been a 5th seed. Can't remember. They might have been the 4th seed when they made it all the way through and won their regional championship. So yeah. So basically, here's the regional championship format. It's looking fantastic. We'll talk about my top 6 teams when we start getting into predictions and all that stuff later on in the week. If you guys have any questions about this format, get them in now before we move on to the World Championship format. But it's pretty simple, all in all. We don't know exactly how the groups are going to be made for World Championship yet, so I don't know exactly where these guys will land. But we'll talk about that in a little bit here. I'm going to bring it up real quick. Some things that I wanted to bring up. Here we go. Am I guessing? I'm always guessing. Always. Oh, Magnelfin, I got the cars. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it, dude. I haven't opened them yet because Giblet was being a brat yesterday. So we got to wait till he's being good. Then he gets presents. But yes. So there you go. Regional Championship bracket. Now there's going to be 3 games that matter for the World Championship, 3 games that matter for seeds. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All matches are best of 7. So it's going to be a good time. Make sure you check it out. Not this week, but next week, Saturday and Sunday. All right. Let's move on to the World Championship. I actually have a whole nother pip for this. Boom. Look at this. Fancy. Might be harder to read your text in here. My apologies, but we're going to go with it. World Championship format. So, there's definitely a lot of pros. There's definitely a lot of cons in this format. I think a lot of it has to do with the limited 3-day World Championship format. But we do what we can, right, with the format. So basically, the teams get thrown into groups A, B, C, and D. So groups of 3, round robin. Then the top 2 out of the 3 teams will move on to the bracket stage. That'll be on day 3, where we'll have best of 5 quarterfinals, best of 7 semis, best of 7 finals. If I go to RLCS in my Gibbs shirt, will you sign? Absolutely, Nexie. Absolutely. All right. So, the one thing that we don't know yet is exactly how these teams are placed. So, one thing that I would like to see, which I don't think is going to happen for this season, or at least, here's a thought experiment at least, is you group the teams into 3 groups of 4. And what you do then is you randomly assign groups, if that makes sense. So, I can't really show it, but say the top 4 teams, all right? Top 4 teams, I would say you base off the last World Championship. So you have NA number 1 seed, you have the Europe number 1 seed, the OCE number 1 seed, and you give the Europe 2 seed that 4th spot. The one problem with this is is obviously then the finals of the European regional don't really matter as much because you would have randomly assigned groups. So they would be in one set. So there'd be a set of 4, and you randomly assign them to groups A, B, C, and D. Now, the one thing I would do is I would avoid having the same region in groups because I think that would be kind of weak. That's kind of the whole point of the World Championship is to kind of make these regions play one another. So that would be one set. So say in Group A, you have the NA 1 seed. Group B is the Europe 1 seed. Then Group 3 or C is the Europe 2 seed. And Group D is the OCE 1 seed. Then you take NA number 2, SAM number 1, EU number 3, and NA number 3. So you got 4 more teams as your second grouping. And then you put them in their spots. So this would at least allow 3rd and 4th seeds to be different for Europe and NA, but obviously NA, the number 2 and number 3 seed would be very similar. And then you assign them groups, and you just make sure that it's not the same region and the same group. So the NAs just have to avoid the NA guys, and the Europes have to avoid the Europe guys. Then your final group, the same thing. You have the Europe 4 seed, the NA 4 seed, the OC number 2 seed, and the SAM number 2 seed. You would randomly assign them groups. And I think this would be a cool way to do it. One, it would just be fun to raffle it off and see where teams land. We're still going to get 2 teams that should make the playoffs and 1 team that shouldn't make the playoffs in every single group. And I think it would be kind of fun just to randomly assign it so people don't try and pick and choose their groups, which I don't think anyone's going to do it anyway. But it's just a good idea to do that so there's never any thought in any of the viewers' minds where these guys would try and manipulate their regional championship performance to get a certain group. But I don't think it really matters. And honestly, this random seed pool thing that is kind of cool, but at the same time, again, like the Europe number 1 seed and 2 seed that finals doesn't really matter in that case, which kind of sucks. But I wouldn't throw SAM as a number 1 up there yet because we don't know exactly where they'd be. That's why I have them in that second tier of groups. But that's just one thought. But we'll say they just get randomly assigned, or they get assigned based on the value of their region, and they're in groups A, B, C, and D. The other thing I would do, which I don't know, it doesn't look like it's happening, for the quarterfinals, you would do, you see how it's like Group A's number 1 versus Group D number 2 in that first round game? I would just take the winners of the groups and the second place groups, 2 different groups again. What you do is you randomly assign on the bracket Group A, B, C, and D, like any of the winners, you assign them to the number 1 spots here on the quarterfinals, randomly. Now, the only rules I would have for this is, say you're in Group A, if the number 1 seed from Group A is on the top side of the bracket, the 2 seed has to be on the bottom side of the bracket, just to avoid having rematches come out early on. And that would be the only caveat. Then have all the number 2 seeds randomly play out. Because my one worry with this format is that teams are going to purposely try and finish in second place when they know who won a certain group. Say something incredible happens and SAM number 1 seed takes down Vitality in Group C. And Vitality gets that number 2 seed. Sam gets the number 1 seed. But everyone is just shitting on Sam throughout scrims, throughout everything. Like, everyone's like, we don't know how this happened. This shouldn't have never happened. But Sam has been getting shit on in scrims. I want to play them. And then some team comes up with like, all right, the way to play them is getting second place in group number B. And I don't want to play Vitality. So I'm going to... I'm set. Like, I'm at 1-0, and I already know that this is a battle for first and second in Group B. I can kind of just ham it up and hope I lose that series and then play that SAM number 1 seed in the quarterfinals because it is single limb. It's not double limb. That's the one worry with this format. But the one thing I like about this format or the pros is we get to see every game on stream, and I think that's extremely important. I know a lot of people were like, oh, just make groups of 6. And make, top 3 come out of each group or something like that. But the problem with that is we would never be able to see every game. And we've been following the journey of every team that's here this entire way where we see every single game on stream. And I don't think we should lose that. So I am very happy that we're seeing every single game on stream. And you just have to worry a little bit about throws or about teams colluding to finish 1 and 2, which I doubt they'll do, because if anyone ever found out, they are screwed and they would be banned forever. But that's your only worry in a round robin situation. The other thing you could have done was make these groups of 3 double elimination brackets. And then I would have probably just had, all right, you throw all the 1 seeds from each region. They have a bye in that first round. So if they win 1 game, they're into the bracket stage. But if they lose, they still get that second shot. So it doesn't really matter. Like, it's still 2 losses and out. And I would have probably done that and make it just like Sam number 1 seed with like NA2 and a Europe 3. So it's a tougher group, maybe. And then Sam could like still be eliminated, like if they are 9th best team. It's not like that bye would have had that much of say on it. The problem with that, again, in a double elimination bracket is you could see rematches. Or if you make them 6-team groups double elimination bracket, then that would change things up a little bit and you wouldn't get any rematches, but the seeds would be kind of weird. So there's always that work. But all in all, it's going to be ruthless. This World Championship, absolutely ruthless. You could literally be out of the running. Like, if you go 0-3 and get scored on 20 times to 1 goal, you're in a deep hole. Like, I guess technically you could get out of it, but there are ways where, say that happens and then that team that just destroyed you loses their next game, you need to sweep and you need to score a lot of goals because it comes down to game differential and then goal differential. So you need to be absolutely worried about that. So there are ways where, like, if you lose 1 series, you're completely out. It'd be very extreme, but it definitely could happen. So going to be very, very ruthless going into this World Championship, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But then it comes down to single elimination bracket at the end. So it's going to be very difficult for, like, those best in the world teams to win compared to how the old format was. I feel like the old format, you always had that second life. In this format, you really don't. You have it in the round robin stage, but if you come out 2-0, it doesn't matter going into the quarterfinals. You have a better bracket or a better matchup, but one mistake and you're out. So it's going to be very, very difficult, but it's going to be a lot of hype and a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited to see how this all plays out. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions about the World Championship format? Throw them up here now, and we can talk about them before we end the video. Four groups of 3 prevent second round rematches more clean than 2 groups of 6 does as well. I'm not sure what you mean there. So what I meant for the double elimination. Oh, you're talking about just 2 groups of 6? Well, you wouldn't have any rematches, at least in the first rounds. Because say you had 2 groups of 6, real quick, for Squirrel Dude. You would take the winners, probably. You would probably only have 6 move on to the final day. And you would take the top seeds from each would have a bye. And then the 2 seeds from one group would play the 3 seed of the other. So you could get rematches of a 1 seed versus a 3 seed from previous groups, but that's it until the end of the day. So if one team has a bad day, goodbye to them. Yeah, at some point, you got to win your games, right? So one and done for the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be really, really exciting, but we could get some crazy results. Like, if one team is really clicking on that finals day, man, can make a run. And plus, like, they could have done that too in the old format. It's just that other team that is, like, also looking good and has been perfect has to lose twice. And so far, we've seen it, like, if one team is really clicking, they always beat them twice. So at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. But who do you think will get second in EU League play? I probably have my money on Barcelona. But yeah, that's one thing we don't know is where the groups land. Personally, I would have the seeds like this, and then obviously you would have to balance out the groups. Like, I would just base off the previous World Championship. I think is the fairest way to do it. So I would have the number 1 seed would be NA number 1. 2 seed would be Europe number 1. 3 seed would be Europe number 2. 4 seed would be OCE number 1. The 5th seed would be NA number 2. And then here's where I would add in Sam. I would give them the 6th seed as Sam number 1, as just like, you won your region, you still deserve something here. So I would put them there. Then I would put the 2-3 seeds, Europe in number 7, NA in number 8. Then 9 and 10 seed would be Europe number 4, NA number 4 would be the 10th seed. Then OC number 2 is the 11th seed, because really they haven't won anything besides the Chiefs. So like OC number 2 always finishes last. Now there's a caveat there with the last time. Technically, the OC number 2 seed was the Chiefs, but the other team in OC has never won a match. And then the Sam number 2 seed would get my 12th seed. And then you would just balance out groups from there, and you would have to try and sprinkle in one region or 3 different regions in each group. Like, that's my one hope, is that has to be a must, because if it's not, that would be extremely weird. So, should be a lot of fun to watch, though. How do they decide which teams make the tournament? That's all based on regional championship stuff, based on each region's regional championships. The most OC2 is accomplished. Jeez, Squirrel. Calm down there, buddy. Technically, the Chiefs finished in 4th when they were the OC2 seed. But yeah, there's always been an OC team in dead last. So that's why I would have them as the 11 seed behind both NA and EU. Now, technically, someone else ties them in last place, but every single tournament that they've been in, they've come in last. So, how will the broadcast days be broken up? Now, I'm not clear on that. What is showing here might be accurate. It would probably be 2 games from one group, or 2 games from 2 groups, 1 game from the other groups. So that'd be a total of 6 games. So 2 games from Group A, 2 games from Group B, 1 game from Group C, 1 game from Group D, and then the opposite on the final day, or I'm sorry, on Saturday. So we still get 6 games here, 6 games there, and then we have lots of games on the final day for playoffs. We would have a total of 7, 4 best of 5s, 3 best of 7s. So that's very, very likely to be right, I would assume. I haven't watched much of Sam yet. But I think it doesn't really matter watching them necessarily. I think that's where I put their seeds as first timers coming in. Yeah, the entire bracket will very likely be on day 3. So it'll be a nice long day. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, sorry, not Chiefs anymore. Now it's Renegades. But yeah. But it's going to be really fun. But it is definitely ruthless, for sure. This World Championship bracket, there is no second chances unless you're in the round robin stage. But for the most part, like as soon as you get down here, where we still have 8 of the 12 teams, there will be no more second chances there. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, a lot of drama. It'll be a good time. All these are best of 5 for groups and quarterfinals. Semifinals and finals are best of 7. Because I guess they didn't want 7 best of 7s on the final day, is my assumption. But yeah, so there you go. World Championship format, regional championship format, new formats. Like I think in the future, it would be cool if we got to a 4 or 5 day World Championship where we could kind of break this up a little bit more, so it's not as ruthless as my one thing. But like obviously, that's a lot of money and all of that stuff. But that would be my one thing I would change, is like break this up. Maybe then have 2 groups of 6, and you could break this up a little bit more and have some more group play into a semis and, well, like into 6 teams going into the final day for the bracket. I think that would probably be the best way to go about it, but again, that's a lot of games to cover, and it's understandable why we have to do it this way. But yeah, either that or make it more elimination style, so we don't have to worry about anyone trying to collude to get the top 2 spots in the group. And again, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's always something to worry about. And it's something that fans shouldn't have to worry about. So that would be my only other option for this World Championship format. But all in all, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully at some point a 4-day final will be necessary if Asia will join 2 more. Yeah. Like, that'd be really cool once Asia joins or something like that. Like, then it would be a little bit easier, yeah, to make groups of 4 would be a lot easier. Like, right now, we can't do groups of 4 because how do you determine who makes it where, right? Where you take the first and second spots from each group, and then there's still 2 spots left, and, like, what do you do with those 2 spots? Or you just take first and second from each and make it a 16 bracket, but then who gets the buys is also a hard part. So that's why you can't really do it yet. But I think groups of 4 is probably the most reasonable, where you play 3 games and you have a little bit more leeway to go around. It's basically Like 2 losses and out at that point, unless someone goes 3-0 in a group and the other 3 go 1-2. But yeah, or the opposite, 0-3 with 2-1s. But still, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But that'll do it for the World Championship bracket. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, make sure you come watch, or actually just come see me. It's in Jersey. I'm gonna just be a drive away, which is gonna be fantastic. So come check that out. And then, yeah, let's do it.